Welcome back to another edition of the Balas and Skene Show. This is not live. We are recording live in front of not a studio audience, but with me, I'm Chris Balas. With me, former Michigan All Big Ten offensive lineman Doug Skene, five-time Big Ten champion. Played for Bill Parcells for anybody who's been living under a rock and hasn't watched this show before, and along with some other Big Ten guys. You played with Harlan Barnett. I
I
forgot about
did.
that, and Corwin
Harlan,
Brown at
Corwin
yeah.
Brown, Bernie Leggett, Buster Stanley, a lot of Michigan and Michigan State guys out there in New England when we were there with the Patriots. So it was good. It was
Why'd
good
Bill Parcells like the Michigan guys?
because they cared. Because they were just guys. One of the things he used to say is one thing you'd always know about Michigan guys, they love the program and they were team guys.
Yeah, they
And
sure
that
are.
doesn't mean that other guys from other programs weren't, but that was the one thing that he would always say to us Michigan guys, and we were the only guys in practice ballots. This happened usually once or twice a season in training camp. We had to sing the victors for the fans and the New England Patriot football team because no one cared about anybody else's fight songs.
That's pretty cool. I
Half the
like
guys
that.
didn't even know the words to their fight songs, but
Right?
we of course we knew ours and we sang it for the team every year.
And sing it proudly.
That's right.
So, and probably badly, if we're being honest, but
Of
that's
course.
okay. Yes. All right. First things first, let's get to a read here. I want to talk about one of our sponsors, Game Time, that I've used now twice. I'm actually right now coming to you folks from a hotel in Austin, Texas, because I'm stuck here for another day. I'm down here for a wedding of a good friend's son, and I decided I was going to go to the Texas game, and I'm like, all right, these tickets are probably going to be crazy expensive, right? But I knew I could get the best deal from Game Time. I've got the Game Time app because they are a sponsor, but I can promise you that it is the best thing that I have ever done in terms of getting secondary market tickets. So I sat up where there was a breeze. It was about 85 degrees, and saw the first quarter and a half of Texas and BYU thanks to Game Time. Buying tickets to your favorite events shouldn't be stressful. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you, which is exactly what I just did. Killer deals on last minute tickets and their best price guarantee. You can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for all the fun you'll have, which I did yesterday. Texas is really damn cool, Skene. I'll bet you've been to a couple games there
I
in
never
your
been to a
notes.
football game, been to the
What?
stadium. Nope,
Okay.
never went to a game there.
Okay.
Of course, when high school in Texas, there's a lot of Longhorn activity going on around you at all times.
Yep.
Been to Austin a few times. Was there a year or two ago for work, and
Okay.
it's a cool city. Obviously, a
Yeah,
pretty cool campus down there. Big
it is.
football culture down there in Texas that is it's a big deal.
Yeah, there are flash deals and last minute tickets, which is what I got, 20 something bucks. And they have an all in feature that tells you what exactly the fees are that you're paying. So easy to find and buy tickets for every kind of event in your area. They have images of the seat views, lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, job loss protection, things like that. It is the place for last minute ticket deals, guys. Forget planning months in advance. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. Uh, Guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So it's the fastest growing ticket app in the country, ticketing app in the country for a reason. Use code, folks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Wolverine for $20 off your first purchase. That is Wolverine for $20 off. And I can promise you, I've used it twice now, once for a Lions game, once for a Texas game in the 2 or 3 weeks that I've had this app, and it's fantastic. So, all right, let's talk about business at hand, Skene. You know what? We want to be talking football here, is what we want to be talking. And unfortunately, we are talking. We're talking about what's going on with Michigan football is I guess it's scandalous, is what people are saying in terms of Connor Stallions, an analyst, allegedly having people film games. There are other allegations that have not really come out yet that he was actually physically at games, and we'll see whether or not that is true. Either way, it's a bad look, wouldn't you say, for the program? And you know what? There are semantics in terms of, as one person put it, okay, if you're just paying somebody to be there, and the bylaws say that you can't be there, but you're paying somebody to be there, as someone explained to me, it'd be like hiring a hitman, right? Aren't you still culpable? Your thoughts on that?
Well, gosh, I'd like to think that hiring someone to kill somebody is not being compared to recording football sideline signals.
No, you know what I'm talking about.
I know what you're
All
saying,
right.
but
Okay.
a little bit of perspective here on the
Sure.
severity of what this is all about and
100%.
this silly game of football that we all love to watch and argue about. It's not a bad look. I agree. It's not a bad look. It's the optics don't look good, and then
You mean it's
with
not a
the
good look?
well, yeah. It's not a good look is what I meant
Yeah.
to convey there, but the optics are not good. And then I think part of the speculation, the more over the weekend here yesterday, just watching college football, every network, every commentator, someone has something to say about it, but none of this contains any of the actual facts and or evidence. And that's what I think we'd all love to hit the fast forward button on to find out what are the facts. What is the NCAA, everybody else going to have as actual evidence? Because that's all that's going to matter in the end. And then us fans can argue about whether Michigan was cheating or not, because that's what we're going to hear about for the next 10 whatever years because of what's out there. And I think, again, as we've talked about before, this sucks for the players on the team that have done nothing wrong. The
Yeah.
guys that have worked hard, that did everything they were asked to do, and they're the ones that get to suffer from this. But at the same time, I'm guessing inside that building, these guys are using this as a great motivation that, yeah, the world is coming after them. They want to take them out. They want to slant the playing field against them. And so there's probably quite the motivator on inside the walls of Schembecker Hall these days for these football players.
And that was my question for you. If you were on a team like that where everybody's coming at you, wouldn't it be like Michigan against the world if you're in that locker room and like, F this, let's go out and kick everybody's ass? And that's really
Yes.
one way, right? That you can say to everybody, you know what, signs or no signs, like they did. Michigan State was given a heads up that Michigan might have their signs. So what happened? Michigan went out and kicked their ass 49-0 when
Yeah.
Michigan State was calling the plays in. So I guess it's kind of really your only recourse, right?
Well, it may be the only thing you really can do. The old cliches about controlling the controllable certainly is in play here. But Ballas, I have no doubts. I mean, it's not just your main rivals anymore, right? There's no one who's said definitely who what other football programs have pointed the finger at Michigan for cheating the system or doing whatever they're not supposed to be doing. But if I'm Michigan, the only thing that matters is whatever program is immediately ahead of me, starting with Purdue and beyond. And so anybody that lines up against me, no matter what jersey you're wearing or what school you represent, you're trying to take something away from me and my teammates. So that should be plenty of motivation on top of what they should already have, considering the way this season is going. And so this team had undefeated national championship aspirations, but I think for the here and the now, this is the juice that's going to give them a little extra punch come Saturday.
I would think so, and it's fascinating because you bring that up about who turned them in, and there's a private investigating firm and everything else. And we got word last night. I was at a wedding. This is crazy, right? I mean, that you can't make half the stuff that hasn't been reported yet is the most fascinating stuff that you will ever hear.
Yeah.
I'm and and Doug Skene's been privy to some of it, and we'll talk about it as if and when it breaks. But as to the cast of characters, as to is there a whistleblower? Is there a private investigating firm, which we know there is? But where did that originate? So I'm sitting there in the wedding last night, and thankfully I'd turned my phone off, but it starts buzzing in my pocket. I'm like, oh man, and thankfully it was a short ceremony. It was a beautiful ceremony, by the way, fantastic. Congratulations to Michael Schiller and his beautiful bride Coco. But here's the thing. So I'm like, oh man, this is something, right? And I knew it was because it always happens. It's a bye week, so of course we're writing our asses off, whatever. Long story short, too late, I understand. But I go out there and I jump into the bathroom to see what after the ceremony was over, and sure enough, it is a couple of different sources because that thing was buzzing off the hook saying, okay, there are rumblings that the private investigating firm has some ties potentially allegedly to Ohio State. Okay, that now there's no evidence. There have been reports out there. Ryan Day's brother is a private investigator, so you know what? It's clear that Ryan Day is having Michigan investigated. That wouldn't surprise anybody. It sure as hell wouldn't surprise me. I can't imagine it would surprise you. But B, how does that change your thought process about this whole thing? If you've got a rival who, let's be very clear about this, is not and never has been squeaky clean about just about anything, regardless of what anybody says. And some of that's played out that way. But how does that change your perception of having a rival turn you in for something like that?
Well, again, if I'm a player, like I just said, the red letter games maybe get a brighter shade of red, a more intensified shade of red, and you just look forward to getting on the field against them. That's how I feel sitting here, just as you talking about this, Ballas. And again, here's a rival, allegedly, because there's so much alleged this, and everybody's
Yes.
got a YouTube channel has an opinion on this and their own evidence or what they've heard. There's no end to it. But again, if I'm Michigan, if I'm Coach Harbaugh, yeah, go ahead and read it. Look at it because everybody's saying nasty things about you and they're saying that you're not as good as you should be on paper because we're somehow some way we have an advantage. Um, I'd be ready to go on Monday to play the rest of my games back to back, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Let's go. Line them up. And I think this is going to bode well for the here and the now for the football team. Our Buckeye friends to the south, and the head coach likes to say it's Ohio against the world. Yeah, I don't think so. I think it's the world against Michigan right now. It's certainly the college football world against Michigan. And it's probably how these guys are feeling.
Yeah, and Ryan Day has, made no secret of the fact that, he talked about Clemson, he talked about another school, he's talked about people stealing signs and things like that, okay, this is something that he's been looking at. We got a lot of people saying, boy, he sure comes across as soft. This guy does not take losing very well. And I want to make something else very clear here, too. There was a Yahoo article that before the 2022 game, Ohio State was well aware that Michigan was doing this, or at least trying to steal their signals, so they changed things up. So there are no excuses for the 2022 game. I'm sorry. You got your ass kicked at home. You got beat 28-3 in the second half. So if you had any evidence in the first half that Michigan was stealing your signs, you had plenty of opportunity. And I get that, it's not so easy to change things up. Well, yeah, it is. You can
Yeah,
sit
it
there.
is. Yeah,
You can
it
send
is.
your quarterback to the sideline. Hey, number one, and like Michigan State did, and say, okay, and what UNLV did in the fourth quarter of their game, if you go back and watch the film, when they thought, and we've heard from our national sources that UNLV is another one that brought it to the NCAA's attention. I have not verified that, but I wanted to say that is from somebody who heard that is a national writer. But to me, okay, so you've got no excuses. Number two, man, are you what the whining going on here and suggesting that that's the only reason that Michigan kicked your butt? To me, is way over the top.
Well, Balas, and last week when we talked, I had said that if you're a football coach in America and you have your system, whatever that system is to get plays onto the field in your short huddle or at the line of scrimmage through cadences or whatever, if you're not changing them up on a regular basis, then you're a dumbass. You should be doing this all the time. I mean, it's crazy that coaches would be presumptuous enough, I guess is the word, or not think that someone can figure it out. I mean, take away the advanced scouting that Michigan is alleged to have been conducting themselves doing, just the game day stuff. I mean, there's enough television copy out there. There's enough YouTube videos out there. People in the stadium with their cell phones. I don't know if you caught this last night. I'm watching a football game, the Ohio State Wisconsin game. Dave Portnoy's at Wisconsin recording it and putting it on
Loved it.
Twitter. And I thought that was a hilarious, activity for him to take. And obviously he's making a point that if you're not changing up your system to get your plays in the field and constantly throwing a defense off, then that's your fault to a degree. And I'm not dismissing the allegations here of what's going on, but just as a general practice, I mean, going back 30 years when we were there, we had a different system, but we had built into the system dummy calls
Yeah,
and fakes and opposites because we knew by the end of the game this defensive front and when the defense was out there, the offensive front was going to figure out the calls. So we had to have something built in to change it up to keep
right.
people guessing. And
Yep.
I don't know, maybe I'm just old school. If coaches have forgotten or gotten away from that in the last 10, 15 years, when good grief, when everybody, you watch college football and the quarterback's out there, calls for the ball, and then he stops and everybody looks to the sideline and gets to play. If
Right.
coaches aren't thinking that maybe I should have a curveball or two in there, then you're a dumbass.
Doug Skene, this is why we bring you on this show. Michigan's five-time All Big Ten, five-time Big Ten champion offensive lineman and All Big Ten offensive lineman. Okay, I was talking to some people down here in the South, right? Because when I was at the game, I had fans around me, and a guy, where are you from? And a friendly crowd, man. I love these people. This dude was actually from Mississippi. He goes, man, do they get an asterisk at the end of this year if they win out? And I said, I don't know. He goes, I think that's bullshit. And then he tells me a story about how he's got a friend who sits in the owner's box at some of these NFL games, and there are people in the owner's box taking film of the sidelines every game. And he said, you know what? Everybody's doing it everywhere. And I ran into an Alabama fan that's laughing. He said, man, you think we don't have 30 fans in the stands? You know what? We're recording somebody's Tennessee's every game. Of course they do. This is not limited to Michigan. What is limited to Michigan is the stupidity with which they did this. Okay, number one, you're buying tickets to games in your own name. With all due respect to Connor Stallions, maybe that just proves that Michigan isn't as good as at cheating as some of the others, but there have been some SEC shorts. I don't know if you saw the SEC short on this. I'm going to send it to you after. It's fantastic. We're like, no. So you want me to go get some tickets from the interstate? No. I want you to put them in your name, and I want you to create this paper trail. And he's like, all right. And anyway, you got to watch it. If anybody out there hasn't seen it, I would highly recommend looking for that. But the other parts of this is that, okay, if this is a private investigating firm from another school, boy, didn't you just open a can of worms? If the NCAA comes down on you, you say to some of your boosters are going to say, you know what? Good deal, man. I got $1 million and I'm going to go down to Ohio State this week. And you don't think that I am going to scrape up every little piece of dirt on this program right now? And this is just going to be an absolute free for all, which I think it would be.
It could be, right? So
Yeah.
I was just thinking through this last night at the end of a day of college football and thinking, how's the NCAA going to handle this? Now, of course, it depends on what is actual evidence. What kind of paper trail you're talking about, electronic or physical paper or receipts or whatever you want to call it. What's that actually going to show? And then how's the NCAA going to deal with this?
Yeah.
And of course, I go back to the same answer all the time, Ballas. Figure out a better system to get your plays on the sidelines, or get your quarterback to come in there, like you're saying. Go to the NFL and put radios in there, and then there'll be allegations that someone cracked the frequency and they're listening to the other team, and some coach is going to go, "They got our frequency. They had a decoder on the sideline they bought on Amazon for $39.95. I got the
Probably Ryan
receipts."
Day. Probably Ryan Day would be that guy. But go ahead, continue.
But the point is, it's all the same, and maybe this has been a big shakeup now across college football. If there's any truth to this, that Michigan did have it figured out, that coaches need to be smarter and they need to demand more out of their players and have guys ready to go to change things up. But it's never going to end, and this could go in so many different directions that I don't think any of this is good for college football. And admittedly, it sucks. This absolutely sucks that it's Michigan that's the one who's at the lead of this mess. And again, for me, of course, I watch these seasons progress, and I think, for the experience, for the guys in the uniform, this is not what they wanted, and
No.
this is what they got. And I think
Yeah.
it's kind of sucks because these guys, let's just say they do what we want them to do: run the table, win the whole thing, and bring home the big trophy. For the rest of their lives, these guys are going to hear, yeah,
Yep.
but you guys had, and
Yep.
I think that's the part that really stinks.
Yeah, it does. And at the same time, when you go back to Spygate with the Patriots and Bill Belichick, and when you go back to Deflategate with Tom Brady, if you continue to kick everybody's ass, and who knows if Michigan will get that opportunity here, because we know that Michigan's conservative. Are they going to sign Jim Harbaugh to a big deal and say, bleep you, we're going to sign our coach and we're going to continue on with this guy and we're going to dominate you for the next 10 years? I think for Spygate, it was a $500,000 fine and it was a 4-game suspension for Tom Brady for Deflategate. You know what? You got an opportunity to show, okay, it wasn't us stealing your signs and it wasn't deflated balls. We just kicked your ass.
Well,
Right.
and if in memory, if you remember now, but Tom Brady talked about how motivating that was and how much that
Yes.
pissed him off, and
Yes.
and he probably worked 10 times harder, and I bet the rest of his teammates did too because they were angry about it.
Right. All right. I'm going to take a quick break here to talk about Bird Dogs. Another one of our sponsors are fantastic. I'm wearing their shorts right now. Bird Dogs stretch khaki shorts. I've got a pair of pants as well, long sleeve pants that I wear to golf skiing, which you would appreciate. Designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and leg, giving you a truly sculpted look. Yes, even you, Doug Skene. So that's why
Sculpt is not a word that's usually associated with me,
no,
Val.
this is why he wants to kick my ass on the golf course, okay? And always does. Bird Dog shorts do the exact same thing as Lululemon, but fit way better. They fit way better than regular shorts that are made of a stiff, restricting cotton. I can promise you, these are not. It stretches so you get a way slimmer fit without having to sacrifice movement. Bird Dogs uses anti-stink, sweat, wicking fabric that keeps you cool and dry all day long. Again, perfect for our Doug Skene. Showing your, yeah. We've got
I sweat a lot, Alice,
you
when I play
do.
golf.
I know you
I do.
do because you take it damn seriously. Go to birddogs.com/Wolverine or enter promo code Wolverine for a free Hydro Flask style tumbler with your order. That's birddogs.com/Wolverine or promo code Wolverine for a free Hydro Flask style tumbler. You want to take your Bird Dogs off. We promise you. Again, fantastic stuff. We can't thank them enough for sponsoring our podcasts. So once again, birddogs.com/Wolverine, promo code Wolverine. All right, I want to tackle something else here about this, and unfortunately, this is the talk of the week and the day and everything else. So we're going to continue here. But how about this talk of a whistleblower and this being an inside job? There are two things. Have you heard about the Jim Stapleton guy? Have you read about that at all?
I
For,
read a little bit of what you wrote about
okay.
it, just
Yep.
a little bit.
And
Yep.
John Bacon basically called him out, and he said, There's no doubt in his mind that Jim Stapleton is the NCAA leak." Now, this is a guy who allegedly, or was alleged to, if you go back and to Stretchgate, remember how stupid that was? Too much time stretching,
Mhm.
and I think he wrote a 4-page response or something to, denying his involvement in that. The rumor had it that he wanted Ron English as the coach, and he was going to do everything he could. Regardless, I've heard too much about this guy to not believe that. You know what? I guess I can't say that. I'm going to say this is all alleged. However, the issue I have here, if what John Bacon says is true, is how are they letting him anywhere near this program? Number one, I don't care how much money he has. He's a minority owner of the Minnesota Vikings and is alleged to hate Jim Harbaugh or not like Jim Harbaugh as well. So if he is friends with some in the athletic department and he's coming to games and sitting in boxes and things like that, how are they allowing that? To me, that is an unbelievable conflict of interest that this guy is employed by the NCAA and apparently or allegedly has it out for his alma mater. Wouldn't that bother you?
Well, it depends on who you are. Of course, I don't, well, here's the one thing I know that Jim Harbaugh in his collegiate career, Jim Harbaugh in his NFL quarterbacking career, Jim Harbaugh as a head coach coming up through the college ranks into the NFL and then back into the college ranks here with Michigan. Um, I've said this before. Jim Harbaugh is probably going to rub you the wrong way at one point or another,
Hmm.
and I think he's absolutely comfortable with that because he's a laser focused guy on what he finds to be his priorities, and he's probably going to figure out a way to win. And when he does, he's going to be that guy that slaps you on the back after that San Francisco Detroit Lion game, and maybe just kind of squeeze your hand a little harder and maybe let you know that he just beats you. In this day and age, Ballas, there's a lot of people that don't like that. There's a lot
Hmm.
of people that don't like guys like Jim Harbaugh who stand up and make controversial statements on national social issues like abortion. There's a lot of things that Jim Harbaugh does and says, the way he carries himself, the commentary that he makes. Some people think they were born on third base or they hit a triple, but they were born on third. All the things that he just sort of does that has been consistent throughout the time I first ever remember seeing him on television when I was in high school. He's consistent, and the downside of that is it can create enemies, right? But I think Jim knows this, and he doesn't care. I've been pretty clear over the years that I think Jim Harbaugh is not a warm and fuzzy guy, and that's okay with me. That's fine with me, but it's not fine with everybody else. So the downside is you can create some enemies, and a lot of people want to be warm and fuzzy with the head coach at Michigan, but this guy's not probably not going to be that with you. And if you get all butthurt about it and your feelings get hurt, I don't think he cares. And if it's Stapleton guy allegedly or anybody else over the years that he's rubbed the wrong way, and they've got a chance to take him down or hit him in the kneecap, then they will. And maybe that's what's going on here. I don't know, but it
Yeah.
wouldn't surprise me if that's what comes out.
The sources that we have that are very close to it on both sides believe there's no chance that there's not somebody on the inside helping them either voluntarily, and there are a lot of people who think that, and maybe more than one even. Okay, but your options here, and you and I have talked about this. You're talking about if a private investigator, investigative firm is going out and looking for somebody, there are so many, right? You're talking about guys maybe he fired, guys that looked for other jobs at other schools because he let them go. You're talking about former analysts that maybe got the axe. You're talking about, we haven't even talked about Matt Weiss and the FBI. I think maybe we did a little bit, but if the FBI finds a computer, they have access to all this stuff. All it takes is one Ohio State FBI guy or Fed, to say to his buddy, "Hey man, you guys might want to look into this," or something like that. And
Mhm.
people are saying, "Oh my gosh, that would be unethical." Blah 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 blah. Come on, man. Let's not be naive here about stuff that goes on out there and sharing of information and everything else. And I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm saying that's a possibility. There are a couple possibilities out there, folks, that when they break, you're going to be absolutely floored. And it's, you know what? This is like I told you and Chris Stapleton, former Michigan punter. This is like a potential 30 for 30 episode, if not a movie at some point, how crazy some of this stuff is. Not that just what's being alleged, but what we know to be true. So
Well,
it's not up to us to report it, folks, until we have specifics on it. But here's the thing, Skene. If it's an inside job and it's somebody who worked formerly for the University of Michigan or is there now, that would piss me off to no end.
Well, of course it would. It'd be disappointing. And if somebody's personal feelings got in the way and they're the ones that started this fire, and it turns out, this is the important part, that it turns out that there is no hard evidence, that this was just someone trying to take the program down
Mm-hmm.
and take Jim down and whoever else they had a bad feeling about, and there's no substance to this, then boy, I think that's borderline criminal, right? There's laws against, accusing people of heinous crimes when it wasn't true. There should
Right.
be. And that could be the case here. But again, I go back to what we said at the beginning of this conversation. I wish I could just hit the fast forward button and find out what are the facts, what's the actual evidence. But none of this happens fast. This
No.
isn't going to be done until the season's over with,
No.
unless something crazy happens and all of a sudden there's hard evidence for everybody to see. And unless that happens, it's going to drag on, and that sucks.
Yeah.
So it just continues and continues. And I again, for the third time, I'll go back. The players suffer, the program takes a hit. The reputations of all these guys takes a hit. And there better be some really good evidence at the end of this, or otherwise you're going to have, I would think, probably more legal action, right?
Right.
If someone's reputation's been damaged and these guys' careers sometime in the future, they get an asterisk next to their name for being part of this when there was really nothing ever.
Right.
There's going to be some hurt feelings on both sides.
Right. And I want to say what we've reported so far is that the NCAA, our sources at Michigan believe that the NCAA has given them what they have so far. That does not mean, folks, everybody's like, oh, that's great news. And yes, it is great news for now, right? As to how to proceed right now, they are in the first inning of an investigation in which they are talking about interviewing Michigan coaches. There have been conflicting reports as to whether or not that's already happened, but we do know that meetings took place on Thursday between the NCAA and others, and that it was their intention of interviewing some folks in the Michigan football building. So whether or not that happened, we don't know, but it will at some point. And if it
Yeah.
hasn't yet, basically what's been told is that this is the first inning, guys. The NCAA is just starting its own investigation after having gotten all this stuff from the private investigation firm. And everybody's saying, oh, they're moving so quickly. And why is this moving so quickly? Well, they were in town. Michigan hasn't even been served with a notice of allegations or a notice of investigation yet, from what we understand. Maybe the notice of investigation, and we will find that out soon enough. But they haven't been served a notice of allegations over Burgergate with the alleged illegal contact with recruits. So no, I don't think they are expediting this. All the talk, though, about the Big Ten getting involved, you want to talk about setting a precedent. How about if the Big Ten were to say, okay, we're not going to let you, Michigan, do this because of this, this, and this. I don't see that happening in any way, shape, or form. Number one, there's too much money involved here from the networks and for the Big Ten. The Big Ten, yeah, I don't see that happening. And again, I'm talking to the people on both sides of it, the NCAA side and the Michigan side, and people close to the Big Ten. I don't think that's on the table as of yet. But I want to stress here, Skene, that if other stuff were to come out that was really damning, then every option would be on the table. That includes suspensions. That includes, I don't know about vacating games, but I do know, and speaking to Michigan personnel, suspensions, and who knows what for the season. But right now we don't anticipate that, and I guess that's good news as far as that goes.
Well, absolutely. It has to be.
Right.
You can't, discipline, or you can't put penalties in place and sentence people to prison without their due process. So unfortunately, this due process is going to take too long for this season. This thing's going to be over with here in 6 to 8 weeks, and this is going to drag on. So the Big Ten, unless some absolute clear cut evidence of a Michigan staffer at the horseshoe taking pictures and uploading it to the cloud and it's going back in. Unless something crazy comes out, the Big Ten can't make a move and put Michigan on the sideline. But the one thing that I do believe that the president, Ward Manuel, Jim Harbaugh, I think that they will cooperate. And the NCAA people were in town this week, and if they were talking to coaches, they're talking to coaches. My understanding is cooperation means, hey, yeah, talk to whoever you want. Go ahead. We have nothing to hide. This is what we are. So, those are the kinds of lessons that, hopefully they're teaching. So remember, there's 120 young men in that football program that are watching and learning from this as well. So Michigan has to do the right thing through this. and to to have the ability to stand up with the pride of the block M on the shirt when the dust settles on this thing, no matter how it ends up, Michigan has to have the confidence that they did it the right way.
Yeah, and the Portnoy stuff cracked me up, by the way. Dave, shout out to you, man, for carrying the water here,
That
because
was
you
it
know
just
what?
it was a little bit it was kind of funny and raw, draws a little bit of ridiculousness to the whole thing because it's
Right.
true, right? I mean, it's you
This
put
is
every
not limited. I don't care. This is not what's going on in terms of fans or people stealing signals or videotaping signals on the sidelines is not limited to Michigan. This is not something that, okay, oh my God, pearl clutching. I can't believe this is going on in college football. There are a ton of more egregious violations going on a daily basis than what is going on here. But of course, Michigan's an easy target because half the time they bend over, number one. And you know what? It's a big name, and if the NCAA wants one, they understand that Michigan's probably going to cooperate.
and we're undefeated, and you got a
Right.
coach that rubs you the wrong way, and people don't like him. Some people don't like him, etc. Ballas did you see? I think it was the BYU Texas game.
Hmm.
I looked at the BYU sideline, and they've got a blanket of towels or something protecting their coaching sideline from the press box side above. I think it was the Texas game, but
It's
it
because
was
I was. It's because I was there, and they
'cause
knew
you were
I was
there.
in
That's right.
town. Absolutely.
Were you sitting on the BYU
I
side?
I have been told not to comment on any such things. My attorneys have told me, you know what?
Well,
I do
listen,
not
man.
represent. I am an unbiased journalist, and I do not represent the university in any way. So what I was doing there is nobody's business. How's that? So
Hope you enjoyed the wedding, but
it was
you watch
fantastic.
college football this last Saturday, you watch it next weekend. It doesn't matter whether it's a potential Michigan target or not, or Michigan opponent in the future or not. There's always coaches, whether they have their mixture of goofy signs or whatever, they're covering stuff up. This has been going on for a long, long time, but please, can we just get to the facts and the
Oh,
evidence so
that's
we can all move on? But
yeah.
that's not going to happen
It
fast.
could be a while. There's no question about it. And I would caution again, for anybody who thinks, boy, the worst is over. I remember that Fab Five deal, and I'm not comparing this to the Fab Five scandal in any way, but you're thinking, man, it can't get any worse after this. And then something leaks. Man, it can't get any worse after this. Then something leaks. And
Sure
then
it can.
when the feds are involved, you know what? There are no secrets anymore for the most part.
Hmm.
You know what?
Yeah.
They are all over your stuff. And to me, that's one thing that's always been in the back of my mind is that, hey, whatever had Matt Weiss had, they have access to. So, and it's not like he had a chance to wipe things clean or whatever. And I'm not alleging any wrongdoing here. I'm just saying, you know what? That's just something to keep in the back of your mind. So, anyway, he's Doug Skene. Let's talk real quick about the rest of the Big Ten and how bad it sucks.
Yeah, boy, the football yesterday was not good
Yeah.
across America. Not a whole lot of good games. Kansas, Oklahoma was a good game to watch finish.
Yep.
Wisconsin at Ohio State, but man, if Wisconsin's offense could have any kind of life at all, I think they win that football game. The Buckeyes clearly run through Harrison Jr., outstanding player. You got it. Wisconsin just doesn't have anybody that can cover that guy one on one. So I'm imagining, all right, who's going to cover that guy for one on one from Michigan?
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Why do you then? Why not give some safety help over there or something
Well, yeah,
like
you
that to
have
run the
to.
game?
They
Okay.
have to. But even then, being that guy just catches everything. He's an
Right.
incredible player.
He is.
And then when they have a healthy running backfield, that running back of theirs last night had a really good night. Ohio State was blocking really well. And you watch the end of line or the behind the view. Ballas, guess what they're running? 46, 47G variations of it, man. Block down the front side, bring a tight end around and smash a thing up in there. So Ohio State's trying to do the same thing we've been doing for 3 years. So we'll see if they're any good at it by the time we get around to playing them. Penn State, Indiana. Yikes. Penn State looks like the kind of average team that I kind of thought they were. They don't look all that great. Indiana plays tough, and Michigan State is still not good. That game was not easy to watch. I was sitting there watching it with a Spartan fan, and it's kind of sad at this point. They're kind of a terrible train wreck at this point. But yeah, the Big Ten stinks. It
I
just
think.
stinks,
I think.
except for
Yeah.
two and a half teams.
Yeah.
It's just not good.
Yeah, I've used that too. 2.5 teams. Sad is a relative term, by the way. Sad. Someone's sad might be somebody else's elation. You know what I'm talking
Well,
about?
we go back to that 10-year stretch where we're getting our noses rubbed in it.
Right. Right.
Yes, I
So
had. It was last week. A coworker of mine is a Michigan State grad, and he's like, "Hey, did you guys really need to score that touchdown late in the game?" I was like, listen to me very closely. Those were third string kids out there, and they practice and do all the work that everybody else has to do. So they let them play, and they scored. That's your problem, not our problem.
Yeah.
And then going back to the year where D'Antonio called the timeout and left the starters on the field just to drop one on us.
Right.
So those things aren't forgotten, right?
Right.
So
Right.
yeah, I'm not apologizing for 49-0. But their program's a mess. And again, I do like Coach Barnett. He was a good teammate of mine in New England all those years ago. Seems like a super guy, but
Yep.
that's the worst Spartan football team I've seen in 30 years. They got nowhere to go but up, and it's a mess. And
Well,
for the most part, the rest of the Big Ten is as well, except for Ohio State, us, and maybe Penn State, but
yeah.
not so sure.
Yep. Nowhere to go but up is debatable at this point. There always seems to be somewhere lower when you think you've hit rock bottom. So we'll see where Michigan State goes. We'll see where the rest of the Big Ten goes. Can't wait for the Purdue game. There's 4 games left. Maryland loses at home. Or they lose to who? Maryland loses.
They were on the road.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Maryland loses at Northwestern. I don't care where you lose to Northwestern. That's a terrible loss. There were
Yeah.
some saying that they were the 4th best team in the conference just recently.
Yeah.
And, is there a 4th best team in the conference, or are they all, 11th worst or whatever? 4th
Oh,
worst.
gosh.
Something like that.
Man, a 4th best team in the Big Ten.
Clayton,
Wisconsin, but their offense balanced. They had so many chances in their offense. Of course, they got a young quarterback.
Yeah.
He doesn't feel confident yet. And anybody that watched that game last night, he's taking sacks. I watched the quarterback on obvious passing downs, and right away, gets the ball. He sets in the pocket, 1001, and he feels pressure. And where do his eyeballs go?
Yeah.
Down, and he's looking around at his pressure instead of keeping his eyes downfield. And so if you watch that game last night, and you watch the young Wisconsin quarterback, and you watch Michigan and JJ play, that's the difference between high level stuff and just learning stuff. And Wisconsin's quarterback's going to get better, but it wasn't enough to beat Ohio State.
Nope. And then you've got Iowa, which lost at home to Minnesota recently, so they're not any good.
They got screwed, Balas.
No, they did not.
That fair catch thing. Come on,
no.
That kid was pointing at a dangerous ball, and he was waving with his left arm.
And the second you do that, per the rule book, the play is dead when somebody touches it, and it happened to Minnesota 3 weeks earlier.
Then coaches have to change, because they've been teaching punt returners when it's a dangerous ball. They're all yelling, Peter, 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 right? And they're doing this, right?
And
so they got to change. So what are these kids supposed to do for their teammates?
Hey, don't touch the ball.
Yeah, you got to have a hand signal.
Yeah, well,
there has to be something.
I'm sorry, but the rule as written, and it's as like PJ Fleck said in his press conference, he said that happened to us 3 weeks ago. And he said, I'm not apologizing for that. They made the right call. And sadly, you know what? It's the rule, and that's exactly right.
Does the rule say anything? And I don't know the rule. Being transparent here. Does the rule say anything about the hand eclipsing or going above the head?
Nope.
Then they need to change that rule.
Yep.
They need to change the rule so the players can do the safe sign, get away from it.
However,
and if your hand goes above your head, then that's a fair catch.
All right, but change the rule, but don't sit there and complain about it when it is enforced correctly. At this point, is my point.
Yeah, okay, I'll give it to you. Geez, you sound like you're a row the boat guy. You love them to win.
You know what? I actually like Iowa's program, or at least I did. But for the last, you know what? And when I need to get to sleep, all I do is pop in their offense, and boom.
Or any other offense in the Big Ten, not named Michigan or Ohio State. They all stink. These offenses are terrible.
Yeah, I can't wait to see Michigan against a few of them. He's Doug Skene, Michigan's all Big Ten offensive lineman and 5-time Big Ten champion. Skene, we'll talk to you next week.
Go Blue.